pretty camp blood, ain't you?
God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get. Leave people alone.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
It's got a death curse.
He's a real prophet of doom, ain't he?
Hello, welcome to Movie Humpers. My name is Bob Sham.
My name is Angela.
And we're doing one of those special episodes that are actually a lot of fun. They tend to be our longer episodes. And we've been bouncing around Europe this month. But today, it's Friday the 13th, this September day. And I really missed the golden opportunity to do this. The last time it was Friday the 13th, which was in October.
We were very busy doing a drop every single weekday in October.
I didn't pay attention. It's not necessarily that the day of Friday the 13th is something that I'm lasered in on. Usually it happens and I'm like, oh, it's Friday the 13th. And then I move about my life.
Yeah.
But have you ever heard of this film franchise called Friday the 13th?
Vaguely familiar. In October on Friday the 13th,
Mm-hmm.
I watched Friday the 13th for the very first time in my life.
Yeah, you were by yourself.
I was by myself. I had never seen it. I did know the spoiler at the end, but it did not matter. I really enjoyed it. I had such a good time. Weirdest thing to realize is that my dad, to scare us when we were little, would totally do the but I'd never seen the movies. I guess as a kid, I thought he made it up.
Very inventive with his with his scary sound.
Yeah.
Well, this movie, I think there is some inventive stuff about Friday the 13th, but Friday the 13th probably would not exist if it wasn't for Halloween.
100%
They're
true.
going on the popularity of that movie, and the first Friday the 13th was a big hit. Actually, most of them are. The first one is different, but it leads into the lore of a character called Jason Voorhees, right? These are iconic stories, or at least the whole idea of this is iconic. I watched a lot of these when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But they all kind of blend together. Yes, we're doing a movie review six-pack. We're talking about the first 6 Friday the 13th films. What we're going to do is we're going to have our little conversation on the top, and then we're going to go into the trailer for each movies. And afterwards, we're going to talk about these movies. We're giving us 8 minutes. We only have 8 minutes to talk about each movie. And then we rate it. We shut up. We rate it. And then we move on to the next one. These episodes, I enjoy doing these. They're kind of a lot because you have to stock up a lot of movies ahead of time to get to. But it's always fun when we actually do it. But talking about Jason, we watched a little, some horror comic convention somewhere. Had a lot of the original cast in it, including the lady who played Jason Voorhees' mother.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Mrs. Voorhees. And this is in the 2000s, so she was still alive. I don't know if she's gone now, but, you just kind of assume after a point.
She's an older lady.
She was very old in the 2000s, so. She talked about how she was resistant to do this movie, but then she learned to kind of connect with the character and didn't think of her as a bad person. But it was explained to her.
I come upon this one shot, and I said, and who is this? And he said, well, that's your son, Jason. And I said, well, why does he look so strange? And he said, well, because he's a mongoloid. I said, what? I said, that wasn't in the script.
It struck me that she said that. The original concept behind who Jason Voorhees was. Now, this is a terrible word that has often been used to describe people with Down syndrome. It's such a bad word that it makes to think about what's worse, the R word or saying mongoloid. God, they're both horrible. Mongoloid sounds so bad.
Yeah, it sounds really, really bad.
But the concept behind Jason Voorhees is that apparently, as they thought him up, he had Down syndrome.
He was a mentally challenged young man with deformities, and she played the character as a woman who was pissed that these kids weren't properly taking care of her kid, and she didn't want anyone else to get hurt.
But it's canon that Jason Voorhees has Down syndrome.
I mean, yeah.
That was their original idea. I mean, you can't tell. He's got a mask on. He's deformed.
Well, originally, I don't think he was.
He looks like the Toxic
deformed
Avenger
in that way. Originally, I think he was just a mentally handicapped child.
No, he was fucked up.
But I thought they did that when they were making the mask. Like, I don't think it was the original.
He was a deformed boy.
He was always supposed to be a deformed boy?
That's the concept,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And according to the lady who played Mrs. Voorhees, they said that he had Down syndrome, essentially. Jason Voorhees, the first and only Down syndrome slasher in film history. But Jason, is he a bad guy? That sounds like a strange question.
Is he a guy?
Yeah.
Like, is he a real?
Well, I mean, he's essentially, we know, supernaturally he returns from the dead. We know that. But I think he's maybe not in control of himself. He's just so driven in a way. It seems like to me, and this is my theory, is that Jason may actually be maybe an angel, a spirit of vengeance sent by God himself. Friday the 13th has given us a lot of camp counselors, young adults fucking out in the woods. And what happens to these kids that get all nude and show off their pubic hair and hump out in the forest? What happens to these kids? Well, they are sent a ghoul man, and he kills them. He is sent by God, punishing them for their premarital sex.
But what about later? Because Jason definitely takes the same turn that Michael Myers does, where he eventually just is killing indiscriminately.
No, that's not true. Purposely trying to get in his way, he will kill. But he has opportunities to kill children, which we'll discuss multiple times. He does not.
He does not kill children.
He never kills a child. The only thing that's sad is in maybe the second one when he kills the old man that warns everyone.
He just
which
has
was really,
no reason.
Which is the saddest kill in the whole franchise.
To kill the old man. He kills a mother at one point who has done nothing. I guess you could just argue she's in his way.
She's real bitchy, if I recall which one you're talking about. She whines a lot.
Okay.
They're in his way, Angela. He is an angel sent from God. He can't even control himself. He's an automaton.
I can get so much more behind Mrs. Voorhees has good intentions in her heart than Jason.
Jason has no intention.
Right. He's a golem.
I don't think he knows what he's doing. Golems are made of like clay.
Well, here's my theory. Because the time frames are so weird through these movies, he dies, and then we see him as a child 20 years later, and then 5 years later, he's a grown-ass man. I think that when his mother died, he rose out of the mud of the lake.
Yeah, I know you're really hung up on that, the time frame of his size or whatever, but he's coming back from the dead, so beyond that, the thing that's charging him up, that's bulking him up, is the horniness in the air that's turning him into a vengeful killer spirit. They actually posit in the second movie that he never died because he would just be like 32 or something. He drowned. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying in 2, they have Jenny has a theory that... Well, Jenny's dumb. No, she's not. She's one of the smarter ones. But these movies, they give you the tits and the ass, the pubic hair. Not a lot of dick. They should make any new Friday the 13th should just compensate with tons of dicks in it. But you get to see all this TNA, and then you get to see them get murdered in some pretty cool ways. So this is like a weirdly puritanical movie, but it plays into the like some weird puritanical punishment fetish here. Evangelical folk, I'm sure you're listening. You're probably thinking like, oh, I can't allow my kids to watch these movies with nudity and violence. Give the Friday the 13th series another shot. This can work like a scared straight kind of a scenario, that if these kids have premarital sex, Jason Voorhees, a spirit of vengeance sent by the Lord, will come and slash you up. I'm just saying, give it a shot. You can scare your kids. It didn't scare me as a kid, but of course I didn't think about it like that. No one presented it to me like that. But I'm just saying, you hardcore evangelicals, the Friday the 13th movies may be more for you than you think. Truly. Anyway, we're talking about these in 8-minute intervals, okay? So, let's not further ado it any further. Let's go ahead and start talking about the first movie.
Hello? Who's that?
Oh, hi. What are you doing out in this mess?
You're all doomed. 3, were just messing with me.
6.
Must be my imagination.
7.
Can I help you?
8. 9. 10. 12. Friday, the 13th. You may only see it once, but that will be enough.
Friday the 13th, from 1980, directed by Sean S. Cunningham, written by Victor Miller, starring Betsy Palmer, Adrian King, Harry Crosby, Kevin Bacon, and Ari Lehman as a young Jason Voorhees. This is the first time we come across a Camp Crystal Lake. They seem to try to call it anything but that after this. But yes, Camp Crystal Lake. And a long time ago, the only time you see kids in this movie is in the opening part where they're singing around a fireplace. Mm-hmm. But we get references that at some point a horrible, tragic accident, a young boy by the name of Jason Voorhees drowned. Jason Voorhees drowned because there were some camp counselors having premarital, out-of-wedlock sexual relations.
And then the next year, a bunch of counselors died. They were murdered.
Yeah, which they kind of leave it open for a prequel, I guess we never got. But they do reference bad things happening in a couple of the movies over the span of time before we ever get to Camp Crystal Lake today, which they're there to rebuild. Yeah,
at some point they tried to reopen and there was a big fire.
Yeah. And they're setting up. There's no kids there yet. It's like these counselors are all there to set up for the big camp this summer. And you got one guy who's like the older guy, but he's trying to fuck one of the teenagers, and
he owns the place.
You got Kevin Bacon and who's there, and a hitchhiking girl who goes through town, and she is warned. She's on her way to the camp. She's going to be a cook. And she is warned by this old man who's my favorite character in the whole franchise.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
Yeah, and she doesn't make it.
And sure enough, these kids, they go around, they start fucking. They're sucking and fucking, flashing their pubic hair to one another, and they keep winding up getting stabbed up, killed, dead.
To me, some of the scenes that stick out as the creepiest is the bathroom. There's a couple scenes in the bathroom where the girls are trying to go get ready for bed, and it's one of those huge camp bathrooms. If you've ever been to camp, I went to sleepaway church camp once.
I went to a camp once.
But there's so many bathrooms and showers and so many places someone could hide, and it's just creepy anyway. And if you have to go in the middle of the night, you do not want to go alone. Mm. And that really got to me. But yeah, all these terrible murders, and you obviously don't see who's doing it. We get to the point where
the person seems very strong, like they're stringing people up and shit like that.
Yeah. Alice is our main girl. She's the one that the owner of the camp was trying to fuck. She's an artist. She's got the hots maybe for this one guy. Ends up that most everyone is dead and they don't know it because 3 of them are in the cabin playing strip Monopoly.
Yeah.
So they gotta die too.
Of course they die. It's the way God intended for these people to die. We do get a revelation, right, of the killer after it's all said and done, willy-nilly.
Well, the cool part is that Alice has now seen that people are dead, and she doesn't know what to do. And she runs out, and she sees this car driving up. And so she runs for help to this car because an older woman gets out of the car.
Yeah.
And starts telling her, calm down, darling, tell me what's going on. And Alice, for a minute, is like, oh, I can trust this person. And then some of these monologues that Ms. Voorhees has, I don't know why people are not doing them like for auditions and shit. It's insane.
Ms.
It's
Voorhees
so
is
good.
kind of underrated.
I am Jason. I am. You see, Jason was my son, and today is his birthday.
This is the only part in which she shows up. And then it's like a minute later, it's like, I'm the killer, right?
Yeah, she's chasing. She tells the whole story.
But that's kind of a little lazy, don't you think? To like not develop this character throughout the whole movie. And then she shows up like, I did it, right?
I don't know. I loved it. I love Ms. Voorhees, and I'm actually okay with the way it played out because you can't really see her ahead of time because then she would be in all these places where murders were happening. Like, that's why she catches everyone off guard. The owner, at one point, she kills him at, like, the entrance to camp. He turns and he's like, oh, what are you doing out here?
Yeah, and then he eats
because she probably came to talk to him the week before and said, close the camp down. Don't do this.
So we're in a big battle between Alice and Mrs. Voorhees, and it's a scrappy little thing going on.
They're in and out of the house.
But I think the one thing that the Friday the 13th movies really popularized was this notion of why the fuck are you doing that, in a situation like this, in which Alice manages to get away from Mrs. Voorhees after, trying to hide and shit. And she stops by the lake.
She's kneeling down by a boat.
Kneeling by a boat. Like, why are you stopping?
With
like,
her back to the island.
The fucking lights of the camp behind me. I'd be moving until those disappeared.
Well, luckily, where she decided to take her stupid break, she was very near to a shovel.
Yeah.
Because Ms. Voorhees comes up on her.
Yeah.
And Alice.
Well, she hits her with a
instinctual.
shovel. She does hit her with a shovel and then finds an axe. I think Voorhees had the axe. Alice does get the axe and cuts her fucking head off. And so what would you do after you decapitated a woman that killed all your friends?
You get in a boat.
Yeah, of course. You get in the boat and you go out in the middle of the fucking lake. That's where you're going to spend the night now,
She could have gotten in Voorhees' car and gone into town at this point.
Oh, come on.
Voorhees is the bad woman. Anyway, she falls asleep. That's the other thing.
No place.
She falls asleep.
No, yeah, I mean, you'd sleep real soundly after that, for sure.
In the middle of a lake.
And this part is actually kind of fantastic.
Yes.
An infamous end scene to a horror movie. Because it takes a long time for it to happen. It just, something's going to happen, but it just drags ass. But that's kind of perfect. And then, of course, after a long time, a decayed-looking, bald, deformed-looking boy comes out the water, grabs Alice, pulls her off the boat into the water. But Alice wakes up.
In the hospital. And the cop says, you're okay, it's okay. And she says,
Jason.
What happened to the boy, Jason?
Yeah.
And they say, there was no boy. And she goes, that means he's still in the lake.
That's mad creepy because this is something that Jason is doing early on in these movies. He's abducting these women and he's not killing them. Yeah. He's pulling them off of boats. He's just dragging them away. They black out. They wake up in the hospital. They have no idea what he did to them while they were gone. He didn't kill them. Also, the final girls tend to be not as rambunctious as everyone else.
Which also started the whole, if you're a virgin, like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween as well, if you're a virgin, you're safer.
And I think Alice is, I don't know if she's a virgin, but she's following the rules a little better than everyone else. And yeah, Jason doesn't kill her, abducts her and drags her off. But poor Ms. Voorhees, her head's lopped off somewhere. I wonder what's going to happen to that head. How much time do we have left?
10 seconds. Favorite part? Best kill?
End scene. Last end scene. I got to give it to that. It's
fair.
fun. Yeah. So 1 through 5 each, what do you give the first Friday the 13th from 1980?
A 4.
Wow, okay.
I like it so much.
I'm going to give it a 3. So check it out, ranking at a solid 7. The first Friday the 13th, directed by Sean S. Cunningham, is as good as, it rests between Forrest Gump and Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. It's at least as good as those movies.
That works for me.
Now let's get into the next one. We got Friday the 13th, Part 2 from 1981.
Hello?
On a June night in 1980, Friday the 13th, 12 of her friends were murdered. Why should Friday the 13th, 1981 be any different? Friday the 13th, Part 2. The body count continues. 14.
All doomed. You're all doomed.
15.
God.
16.
Help!
17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22. 23.
Sandra? Jeff?
The day you count on for terror is not over. Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Friday the 13th, Part 2 from 1981, directed by Steve Miner, written by Ron Kurz, starring Amy Steele, John Fury, and more. And Steve Daskowitz and Warrington Gillette both play Jason Voorhees. One of those names I mentioned are Jason without the sack on his head, and the other is Jason with the sack on his head. And we don't get the hockey mask yet.
No, this is a one-eye hole sack.
And it's apparently been about 5 years, right, since between this and the first movie?
It has been 5 years.
Didn't they mention that there was some kind of poison, or the water was poisoned in between this time? Is this the one where they mentioned the poisoned water?
I don't recall that.
Well, we did watch a lot of these in a chunk.
Yeah, they do. They are at a different lake. Or they're not. They're at the same. They're at Crystal Lake, but they're at a different encampment around the lake. This is a counselor training camp. There's never to be any children. It's a lot of counselors. And we meet Jenny very quickly. She's our main girl. She is fucking the guy in charge.
So she is, she's one that's been going to the bone zone, unlike some of our other final girls, right?
Yes. And, there's your
Jenny.
horny group of teens per usual.
There's always like an annoying nerd, horny nerd too.
There's one annoying nerd, and there's always a couple that's already together from the beginning. And in this one, it's Sandra and her boyfriend. And that's only important because we might meet Sandra's brother later.
I forget the name of the camp, but it's like it's on the other side of Crystal Lake. It's not at Camp Crystal Lake.
Right.
And at one point, one of the couples goes to see the ruins or whatever of the old Crystal Lake.
Because they're told not to fucking go there or the cops are going to arrest them.
And
And there are people monitoring the area.
And they see and they come out of it okay, but they see a dead dog and they assume it belongs to this girl that has her dog with her. Sure enough, just like what happened 5 years prior.
The similarities with this and the first one really are just that they're in a camp setting and it rains a whole lot. That's really the two biggest, closest similarities. But when all the action starts happening, it's after some of the counselors decide to go into town to a bar. There's a lot of counselors, but they go and there's only about 5 kids left right now at the camp. And one of them is a very handsome dude in a wheelchair, and there's a girl who's really trying to bone him.
His kill was great.
then there's Sandra and her boyfriend who are just also trying to bone. And, this is... It just goes very, very quick, very intense.
It's all quite simple, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think what I like, especially about the first two ones, is that, in later movies, they try to develop maybe more of the characters. And I think the more we learn about these counselors, they're just more annoying. You're not really that sympathetic with most of them.
No.
But I kind of like how they're streamlined into their little horny ids in the first two movies. And I feel like it's a little more perfect in these first two chapters than it goes as we get later in. But there's no real complaint about that. I mean, all this just like, how is all derivative of Halloween, just like the last one was. But this one even more so, because we actually have a dude, a fiend with his face covered going around, and it is
in a dark outfit.
The burlap sack over the head with the one eye. That's scarier than a hockey mask.
So much scarier, because that is what leads you to think or to know there's more going on under there. Very quickly, he kills these kids that are left at the camp. And then Jenny and the owner of the camp come back.
Right.
They discover that everyone's dead. And they're immediately also fighting for their lives. At one point, Jenny gets chased by Jason into his hideout, which is this very crummy looking, thrown together shed.
This scene is actually pretty cool.
And she sees that he has the head of his mother, the mummified, or just because it's through time,
right?
Mummified head of his mother on this table with all these candles and shit around it. So he has like a altar to his mom, and her sweater is there. And he starts to come in, and Jenny is this is so smart. And how do you even think to do this? She puts on his mom's sweater, and she stands in front of the head, and she convinces Jason that she's his mom.
Jason, Mother is talking to you!
Jason, Mother is talking to you. Come on. Come on. That's my boy. Come. Kneel down. That's a boy.
And that he needs to listen to her and put his knife down and kneel down in front of her. And then she raises to stab him, but he sees the mom head behind her and knows it's fake, so then he starts attacking her.
The way we know Jason nowadays, he's just this hulking guy that's walking kind of slow, like an It Follows kind of thing.
Yes,
but
he'll catch you eventually.
But early Jason, he's a bit scramblier. He comes out, he's like a little wiry, he
doesn't really seem to know what he's doing as much, which makes sense.
And it seems like you can stun him pretty good. Like, he seems the most human here, but he's still an undead man. He came out of the water, right? He, at the very least, as real as he seems here, we know that he is a drowned boy who's returned from the watery grave.
When he's fighting with Jenny and her boyfriend shows up, his sack actually gets taken off. Actually, I think she takes it off when he's stunned. And in this one, Jason does still have like the deformities, and he has all this like weird scraggly long hair.
He looks like the Toxic Avenger.
He does, with a lot of hair.
Yeah.
And they end up back in the main house, and there's just a bunch of fighting, and he ends up killing her boyfriend. And then it cuts to the next morning. Again, something's happened to Jenny, but we don't know what. She is alive and on a gurney being taken to the hospital.
That's creepier than all the murders we've seen, is that when they go out, Jason takes them off somewhere, and then they wake up in a hospital having no idea what happened to them. Yeah. That's genuinely unsettling, more so than anything else. And I will say that I love the way the shots are framed, the way Steve Miner did his shots. I think it's a little more refined, a little more sharper than the first one. And for me, Part 2, I think, is the best of the franchise that we've seen so far. I mean, maybe Jason X is going to blow my mind as we get to that in the end of the year. But the way, there's parts where we see him looming past a window while people are scrambling in a cabin. Like, there's some really smart shots and takes done in this one. And I actually think this is a pretty solid horror.
I agree that it is the best It is the best of all the ones where Jason is the dude. It's almost a different movie. It's a restart from the first. It's like a reboot almost. Because the first one, the reason I like it so much is because it has that twist.
It does.
That is so unlike what everyone else was doing. Like, you can say it's so derivative of Halloween, but having it be his mother is so groundbreaking for the time.
It makes it a little different. And you're right. This one is more derivative of what we've seen before.
And I love it too.
But I just think how it's made overall is just better.
You could tell they had a little more budget on this one too.
For sure.
Because it was the second. I don't know. We have 10 seconds left. It's
a
good one. You wanted Wheelchair Boy's death was cool.
Yeah, he got chopped and then fell back on the stairs. All right, 1 through 5 each. What do you give this one?
I'm actually going to also give this one a 4.
3.5 for me, so this is a 7.5. Here we go, folks, at a 7.5. I don't think it's going to get higher than this. Friday the 13th, Part 2, directed by Steve Miner from 1981, is in between Eyes Wide Shut and For a Few Dollars More, the Sergio Leone movie. Some say we underrate those movies as well. But anyway, let's get into the next one, Part 3, 3D.
Weekends are a good time to escape to the woods. Unless the weekend begins with Friday the 13th. Because 13 is an unlucky number. But out here, so are 1 through 12. Because these are Jason's woods. And nobody leaves them alive. Friday the 13th, Part 3, in 3D. Jason, you can't fight him. You can't stop him. And now, you can't even keep him on the screen. Friday the 13th, Part 3, in 3D. Now, when it comes to killing in Jason's woods, Jason will come to you. Friday the 13th, Part 3, in 3D. A new dimension in terror. It will scare you. Count on it.
Friday the 13th, Part 3 from 1982, Part 3D, directed by Steve Miner, written by Martin Kitt Rosser and Carol Watson, starring Dana Kimmel, Paul Kraka, among others, and Richard Brooker as Jason Voorhees.
So this one starts out immediately following the second one. One thing we didn't mention on the second one is that he kills Alice at the beginning, which means he left Crystal Lake, which is super weird. Anyway, so in this one, this group of kids is going to this girl's family home. So she used to stay in this house with her parents. I don't know if they lived there forever or if it was a summer home. Who cares? She hasn't been there for 2 years because apparently 2 years ago, she was abducted by someone in the woods. And like these other girls we've talked about, doesn't know what happened to her. She woke up in her own bed and her parents refused to talk about it.
This character's quite annoying though, because at first she's like, this thing, I can't believe I'm coming after all that happened. And we're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they wait too long to tell us the fucking story. And she's got this hometown boy that's trying to get with her. And
they try to add a little more to the campers, and it really appreciates how kind of blank and streamlined they are in the first two, because this one they're trying to do more with them, and they just come off even more annoying than they ever have before.
Yeah, your annoying nerd in this one is this kid who seems to be obsessed with horror, and he actually brings multiple costumes to try to scare them. He's the one that brings the hockey mask as one of his costumes, and he gets killed, of course, and when he does, Jason takes on his mask.
Is he the sad nerd guy? This like the chubby nerd
Yeah,
dude?
he's the chubby nerd dude.
And who can get like zero puss, and he's really, but he gets, this is an example of a guy who can get laid, who does get murdered.
He does get murdered. He's also, though, very annoying.
Yes,
so there's also that.
Quite annoying. You really, each movie has people that you're like, as we're getting to the third act of a lot of these movies, I'm just like, just get on with killing these annoying people, please.
He's kind of an incel. Like, he gets really mad at this girl for not wanting to have sex with him when she actually is being pretty nice to him. And if he would just stick it out, he might get at least a kiss.
Yeah.
But he gives up so fast. Anyway, there's still murders in the lake, murders by the water. Everybody's being murdered. Oh, there is a motorcycle gang at the beginning of this because Nerdy Boy and the girl that his set up with date.
They're so goofy too.
Yeah, they go to this convenience store and
I love
meet
convenience
these guys.
towns.
Yeah, convenience towns are so easy. Everything's so convenient there. And they get on the bad side of this motorcycle gang, and the motorcycle gang ends up following them back to the house, and the motorcycle gang, all 3 members of it are killed before any of the kids are.
Yep.
Jason just murders them all in the barn. There's a big lot of barn.
One of the kids ends up like hitting them with the car, but they're actually like breaking their shit. They are harassing them, and one of the kids like hits their ride or their bike, and that's what caused them to chase
he backs
them.
into
and they're
it.
trying to siphon the gas, and that's when Jason Voorhees, who's returned, comes back. But he does don the hockey mask, but not until around the start of the third act of the movie, after the super nerd is killed. And then he sticks that mask on.
Before that, we just don't see his face.
We see his face a lot more than I remembered we did. Jason's not that mysterious. He looks like the Toxic Avenger, if you're wondering what he looks like under the mask.
Yeah, but in this one, he doesn't have any hair. So
Sure,
he
detail.
shaved his head between the second and third movie.
Sure. If he can set up a shrine of his mother's head on a table, he can take the time to shave his head.
Sure he can. This one has some super weird stuff that happens at the end. I don't know how much about the middle you want to talk about. There are obviously kids trying to fuck.
Yeah, a bunch of teenagers get fucking killed.
Yeah,
it's
that's
every
really
goddamn
it
movie.
On this one. Bike gang, kids killed. We find out the girl was abducted by, as we know now, Jason.
Chris.
So how many
Chris
women,
is our final girl.
How many women has Jason abducted over the last 20 years?
At least 3 that we know of.
But this is what I'm saying. Her parents wouldn't talk about it. Are her parents from there? Do they know that it was Jason? Did they just not want to tell anybody? What the fuck is up with her parents?
People are trying really hard. I mean, at this point, they've been calling the like Camp Blood and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone knows. There should be a Friday the 13th where they send the military, like, we need to see what's going on at this fucking lake.
Truly, at least the FBI. Where's your serial killer investigators?
I forget how she takes Jason out, but it's like he falls. It's kind of like the first Halloween where he's just down, right?
Yeah.
And then she has this nightmare or something. She has this vision of him unmasked chasing her. It's really creepy to see him walk out from the house. But she's another one that decides to get away from it all by getting in a boat.
Canoe.
So we're like, well, Jason's in the barn dead or in her head running around.
He's laying on the ground. He's had an axe in his head. We see this later because it actually like cuts the mask and the mask stays cut. And yeah, he's laying with this axe out of his head. But yeah, she has this sort of vision that he's coming towards her. But then.
Who comes out of the water? You might be like, why would they have Mrs. Voorhees coming out of the water? A zombie
Especially
lady.
with her head attached.
But we have a theory. It's Aunt Voorhees. It's Jason's auntie.
Voorhees.
It's Jason's auntie who was murdered by whoever sometime. She also drowned.
In the lake.
And she comes out. And actually, she looks scarier than Jason.
Yes.
Because they have like things coming out of her face. Like, she does look scary. Even if it doesn't make any continuity sense whatsoever. But again, this is the second time Chris was abducted by Jason Voorhees. One off screen and now this one. And sure enough, she wakes up somewhere. And she does have like, there's supposed to be some vagueness between what she dreamed and what actually happened. But I think it was Auntie Voorhees that did pull her into the water. So Auntie Voorhees and Jason abducted her and she wakes up in a hospital.
So we have 1 minute left. I want to talk about how this movie begins almost exactly like Halloween 2 because they're a combination of Halloween like images. This woman is outside of her home / business where she lives with her husband and she's doing laundry and Jason is there and he's kind of in and out of the laundry. You kind of see shadows. She thinks it's her husband. She keeps yelling for him.
Yeah.
She goes in the house. She turns on the TV and they're talking about all these kids that just got murdered at the camp and you see the police cars and stuff at one point early on too. And it's the same as the beginning of Halloween 2 when that couple has it on the radio or there's like the girl on the phone, something they know, but the story's being told to them while they get murdered. Also, the man in the store, it's one of the funniest moments to me in this whole franchise because it's his store, but he's in the store and he's going through and just eating bits of the food that he's going to sell to people. So he's opening up a pickle jar, eating a pickle, closing it, putting it back on the shelf.
That's what I would do if I owned a country ass store.
Yeah.
Me too. What do you give Friday the 13th Part 3 3D? Oh, and of course, because they showed this in 3D, there was a lot of like things coming out at you moments. My favorite one being when a guy was trying to pass you a joint through the screen. That was fun, I got to admit. But what do you give Friday the 13th Part 3? 2. I'm going to go a little better than that. I'm going to say, well, maybe not much more, a 2.25. So that's a 4.25. We prefer burlap sack, Jason. All right, take a look at it. Friday the 13th, Part 3, directed by Steve Miner from 1982, is a 4.5. It is a C and is right above Pootie Tang and Mike Tolan's Radio. So it's at least as good as that, if not worse. Burlap sack Jason for life. Now let's talk about Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Three times before, you have felt the terror, known the madness, lived the horror. But this is the one you've been screaming for. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Jason is back. He moves like a shadow, dark and silent.
Sorry you changed your mind?
He never utters a word. He doesn't even seem to breathe.
Where the hell's the corkscrew?
He simply, mindlessly, mercilessly kills. But now, Jason's reign of terror is over. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Jason's unlucky day.
Friday the 13th, the final chapter from 1984. This is it, folks. Directed by Joseph Zito. Written by Barney Cohen and Bruce Sakow. Starring Kimberly Beck, Crispin Glover, Peter Barton, and a young Corey Feldman, and Ted White as Jason Voorhees. Where do we start off here?
So this movie is again starting right after number 3. And in this story, we're focused on Trish and Tommy. Tommy played by very young Corey Feldman. They live with their mother in the woods off of Crystal Lake.
And I guess there's a house next to them that people rent.
Yes, it's like a summer rental. And so all these teens, these young college, whatever kids are driving out there and have rented this house. And they very quickly, meet Trish and they invite her to a party later and Tommy sees like boobs and stuff.
Hell yeah, Tommy.
It's very exciting. They she goes to take him to the lake at one point and all these kids are skinny dipping. Right. Yeah. And so she has to take him away. The only other thing to mention, I think just about the setup is they have a dog named Gordon. They live alone. The dad's not in the picture. And the two women go running all the way around the lake every morning at 6 a.m.
And
they're not scared.
And the oldest daughter is about the age of they're not counselors. I keep wanting to say they're counselors.
College kids.
They're just young adults.
Yeah.
And she kind of gets along with them a little bit, but she does chastise them when they get naked because Tommy's there and they're like, no, don't do that. So she's our final girl. She's puritanical.
Well, there is a more puritanical girl in their group. Like, she doesn't want to skinny dip. She doesn't want to do anything until later when she gets a little drinky. They meet these twins. Crispin Glover and this guy Teddy decide they're going to get with the twins.
The dialogue in this movie in particular is so rough. Yeah, even from Crispin Glover. And he's got this annoying friend who calls him like dead fish or whatever the fuck.
Dead fuck.
Dead fuck.
Because he says a girl broke up with him and he says, oh, it's probably because you are a dead fuck.
It's so fucking annoying to just sit through that dialogue. It is obnoxious.
It really, really is.
And then of course that nerdy friend is the most annoying. But Crispin Glover does get laid by one of the twins. It seems like they're all trying to chase each other in front of each other, but they're also pushing each other away and fucking someone else in front of each other.
Yeah, it's really weird. Because again, like in the other movies, there is a couple that is solidified as a couple when they get there, this guy and girl. And at one point, he starts dancing with one of the twins. And to make him jealous, she leaves and says she's going to go take a swim. Well, that's when she gets killed.
Right.
And he does eventually go to find her, but she doesn't know he came after her. He actually said no to the twin. Was like, I can't do this with you. I need to go find my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Which is still not good. He's a bad dude.
He
But
still kind of cheated anyway. Sort
he
of.
didn't fuck her. I think she tried to kiss him, and he's like, whoa. Anyway, they were dancing.
Yeah, the whole interchange between all the meat in this movie.
It's gross.
It's like obnoxious and tired.
And the sister of the twin gets annoyed that she's fucking Crispin Glover. She's also been called the not as pretty twin, so she's ready to go. So she is going to ride her bike home, and she gets murdered outside. And so basically anyone who leaves the house is getting killed.
By Jason Voorhees. I forget how he would come back. Maybe he's just around.
He's just around because it's literally after the last one.
We forgot to say that every movie has like a 10-minute recap of the previous movie, up until maybe the 5th one.
I can't remember when that stopped, but it stops during this. At some point, they stopped doing that.
Oh, Corey Feldman. It's important to establish that this kid his character, Tommy Jarvis, he makes monster masks.
Yes, and very good ones.
And he's very good at it. But they also know about Jason, and he has cutouts of the boy in the lake because they have like a drawing depicted of him. I guess that was described from the girl from the first movie or something.
Well, he finds that stuff because his sister Trish meets this guy named Roy, who we find out later was Sandra's older brother. So Roy has come to this lake.
Sandra from the second one.
To kill Jason.
Yeah.
He is ready to kill. He's got his own machetes. He's got his own weapons. That's where the little brother finds all of the articles.
But he ain't shit because Jason kills his ass.
Jason does kill him. He gets to fight a little bit. He and Trish and Tommy make it almost to the end. But then, and I'm making sure we start talking about this now because we need plenty of time to talk about what Tommy does in order to take down Jason.
Jason is terrorizing the house. He's killed all the young adults.
There is a really cool murder in the shower scene when the prudish girl finally fucks the
murders
boy.
are a little better here
They're
than
good.
in the last one. But Jason is terrorizing the house, and Corey Feldman's character has an idea. Tommy Jarvis has an idea. I'm going to shave my head, and I'm going to paint myself up. There's a picture above your head right now. He looks like a baby Uncle Fester.
Jason! Or a young Billy Corgan from where I am.
Yeah. Despite all my rage. And I guess the idea is that he's supposed to be like, I'm you, Jason. Settle down. Look, I'm a little boy with Down syndrome, too.
It's sort of a weird, but wrong callback to what Jenny does when she pretends to be his mom.
But they set this kid up that he makes all these cool masks, and he doesn't have one Toxic Avenger-esque looking mask to stick on his face.
Or a fucking bald cap so he doesn't have to spend 10 minutes shaving his head very badly. He cuts his hair, then he shaves his head. He's up there forever while his sister is fighting for her goddamn life downstairs, putting on eyeliner.
This successfully distracts Jason, and then Tommy manages to machete him on the side of his head. Jason falls, and then it's like Tommy's just chopping, and then it implies almost like in Halloween 4 that like the Jamie Strode story that she could be the legacy for this monstrosity, and that kind of alludes that way with the young Tommy Jarvis as well.
He hugs his sister, and then you see his eyes go dead.
Yeah. But much like the Jamie Strode story in Halloween, there was a lot of potential, and don't expect it to go anywhere. Deep.
And then it's just over. This is another one where he's just dead.
Actually, the Jamie Strode stuff had good potential. They could have made that really cool. Did. I don't see how the Tommy Jarvis story, which we're going to be with Tommy Jarvis for like 2 more movies now, how that is honestly any bit interesting whatsoever.
No.
But yeah, and that's it for Jason. The final chapter, right? Is this really the final chapter?
I mean, it has to be. That's what they called it. The final chapter. He's dead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a few seconds, so we could mention that the reason he comes back to life at the beginning is they have taken him to the morgue, and there's this horny morgue guy who's trying to get with this nurse, and Jason comes back to life and kills them both.
I forgot.
He's really just been stunned. I guess once the blade's removed from his skull, he regenerates or some shit. Totally. Yeah. And so he kills some people in a hospital.
Premarital sex generates his life. When it happens around him, when young people are horny around him, it like rebuilds him.
There's a great moment where Roy's like, I gotta kill Jason, and Trish is like, he got out. Or they say, like, he's dead, and it's like, no, he's not dead.
Friday the 13th, the final chapter from 1984 by Joseph Zito. They were churning these out during the time. You might notice this is the only one with, like, a year in between the other, with, like, 2 years between the other ones.
Crazy.
Anyway, what do you give this one?
I'll give it a 2.75.
I'm going to give it a 2.
Okay.
So it's a 4.75.
We're all over the place.
This series is all over the place.
Know.
Check it out at a 4.75 in the Hall of C tier. It's kind of perfect because I compared this to Halloween 4, and it has the same score as Halloween 4. Friday the 13th, the final chapter by Joseph Zito from 84, shares the rankings with Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, and Kate Plays Christine, our one documentary. I need to transfer some Documenteers results over here.
That'd be cool.
Move it along now. 2 left. I know they said it was the final chapter. They lied. The next year, it was Friday the 13th, A New Beginning.
If the memory of Jason still haunts you, you're not alone. Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning.
Severe trauma at age 12. Brutal self-defense, murder of a psychopathic killer. Boy, they've given him every therapy they can think of. It's wonder his mind isn't fried with all the drugs they've given him.
The mindless, murderous fury that was buried with Jason has been reborn.
Pete!
And suddenly, terror has become child's play. 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning.
Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning from 1985, directed by Danny Steinman, written by M. Kit Rosser and D. Cohen and Danny Steinman, and starring Melanie Kinnaman, Shavar Ross, along with a few others, and Tom Morga as quote-unquote Jason Voorhees.
Okay, this is the first one that doesn't have the beginning recap, because instead what we get at the beginning of this is a little bit of an older Corey Feldman in a dream sequence.
He really hit that growth spurt between this and the last movie.
He really did.
They're only a year apart.
Yeah, he looks a lot older, but he's in this dream sequence where Jason comes back to life and tries to attack him. And then a older teen, Tommy, wakes up from this nightmare. And we learn that it's been about 15 years and Tommy's been in and out of mental institutions, and he's finally being sent to this camp.
It doesn't say it's Crystal Lake. It's, from what we can tell, it's a whole other different area.
Yeah, but they're at this camp that is meant for kids who have had difficulties to reintegrate them in society. You go to this camp and you can make your own rules. You can kind of do what you want. I mean, you have to follow the rules, but no one's telling you when to go to bed, when to come and go. And so he has a little more autonomy there.
There's this kid, our first, actually, I mean, we got Tommy Jarvis as a kid in the last movie, but we're starting to see more children, and we get Reckless Reggie in here. And
he's one of those young, smart alecky kids.
No shit, to give this little actor, Shavar Ross, credit, he might be one of the better performances in the whole franchise so far.
That is very true.
I'm not kidding when I say that. He actually does really good.
He lives there at the campground because he lives with his grandfather, who's the cook.
Yeah.
And his grandfather is a sweetheart. He's a little wary of Reckless Reggie's older brother named Demon, who we do meet later.
Who
and
dresses
he's very cool.
Who dresses like Michael Jackson and hangs out in a van, I guess.
He and his girlfriend were giving me very much like Prince vibes.
80s.
Yeah.
80s.
But he does go and visit them at one point. But there's this man and woman who are in charge of the camp. And the doctor who's in charge of the camp doesn't seem to be very good at doctoring.
No.
And Tommy's there, and Tommy doesn't really talk. He's very weird. He's got glasses.
There's this kid who's like a super nerd. Like, he's so fucking nerd that it's like he doesn't know how to eat food without it getting all over his face.
Hi, girls.
Hi, Joey.
Hi, Violet.
Huh?
Hi. What are you doing?
Doing laundry, Joey.
Can I help? I'm really very good at doing laundry. Matt never assigns it to me. I don't know why.
Look, Joey, we really have to get this thing finished, okay?
So I'm here to help you. You can count on me, Rob. You too, Vi. Want a chocolate bar? Here, you want it?
Yeah, he's probably doing the worst of all of them as far as taking care of himself.
And some other person at this special camp literally attacks him with a machete and kills him.
He's chopping wood, I believe, and the guy goes to try to help him and won't leave him alone, and the dude has anger issues and kills him. So our first kill is not even a Jason kill, but it is brutal.
So the cops come along, and one is a little bit more like crude about it, and there's another cop that seems genuinely concerned about all that has taken place here. He's more of the quiet cop. They're trying to present him like he's the good cop. And after this incident, murders start to happen. And I think a lot of people assume it's that guy that's escaped or something.
No, he was in custody.
But murders begin to happen that are Jason hockey mask style murders.
Yeah, and so there's this really dirty mother and son who live near there.
God.
And two of these horny teens go have sex on their property. It's like just far enough away from the camp that they won't get caught by their counselor or doctor, nurse people, whatever. And so that woman gets pissed because she keeps catching those kids fucking on her land.
And her son is like this idiot, like just obnoxious. I think it's supposed to be funny.
It's not.
Or is this like wrestling where you make them so heel that you want to cheer when they get fucked up?
Maybe.
I don't know. It just
They're
is like
gross and bad.
Wouldn't you rather make your horror movie good and not corny?
Fuck what?
But here we are.
So anyway, the cops are also telling them you got to keep your kids off that land. Of course, they don't stay off the land. They get murdered when they're out there fucking in the woods. And yeah, the doctor gets killed at some point. Bunch of killing happens. Everybody gets killed. We have about 3 minutes left. So everybody's getting killed. You end up where the nurse has gone to take, oh, not a nurse, but the woman in charge, whatever, has gone to take Reggie to visit his brother. And while they're gone, Tommy goes with them, and he gets in a fight with that son guy, and he goes missing. So as these murders continue to happen, Tommy's sort of always near where these people die, because that man gets killed right after they have their altercation. And so there is this question of, is Tommy killing?
Mm-hmm.
Because the one person who knows who Tommy Jarvis was is the police guy.
So Pam is the name of our final girl, and her and Reggie, after everyone is killed, are being traced throughout the barn by Jason Voorhees. And yeah, but Tommy then makes the heroic appearance to battle Jason. I think Jason fucks him up, right? I forget how Jason... It just goes through me like water, these movies, especially at this point. Like, do you remember how Jason was... Oh! They got him on top of the barn, and there was like a plow thing with the spikes straight up, and they managed to... Well, at first it's like a fake out. They thought they got rid of him, but he's hanging on, and then they kick him off it, and he falls onto the spikes. But it fucks his mask up, and he looks like Jason Voorhees, but he's wearing two masks. One that makes him look deformed, and then the hockey mask over it.
And it was a different mask than we're used to seeing. It had blue on it.
And this is
red.
This is such a fucking dumb forced story logic. It turns out it's the nice guy cop, and the reason he did it was because the dumb kid who can't keep food in his mouth, and it's all over, like the sad sack fucking loser that gets killed by the other guy, is his son. And he's so outraged
never been in his
that
life
he's
or
never
known him
been in
ever.
contact with. And he happens to roll up, and that happens to be his kid. And even though he didn't bother being a father, he's so enraged that he's going to don the Jason Voorhees getup and kill people.
And I can only think that he chose Jason Voorhees because Tommy was there and he could try to pin it on him when he was done killing everybody he wanted to kill.
I like a few things in here. I like Shavar Ross, but like this story concept and the fact that it's not Jason, it's a little soft.
But then we go to the hospital.
Yep.
And Pam is in the hospital. And Tommy is in the hospital. And I can't remember exactly how it plays out, but he gets up from his hospital bed and he goes over and opens a drawer. Oh, and I don't know, pulls out a Jason mask.
This looks like a Jason mask
and
in
puts
there.
on this Jason mask, and he goes and kills Pam.
Yeah, like they appear in the room and he's got a knife coming up behind, and that's like the end of the movie.
So Tommy Jarvis is a murderer.
The implication is that now he is that Jason Voorhees is gone, but Tommy Jarvis is now the guy with the mask.
And there's also a thunderstorm happening because, there's always like lightning and shit around Jason at some point in these movies. But yeah, he's now a murderer.
Yeah.
Let's see if they remember that in the next movie.
They won't. Let's see. Friday the 13th, A New Beginning from 1985. What do you give this one?
2.5.
I'm going to give it a 1.75.
Okay.
It just, too much about it just annoyed the fuck out of me.
Let me rethink that. I'm actually going to go 2 again.
I'm going to go 1.75. So that is a 3.75. So check it out at a 3.75. Hits a D tier. Friday the 13th, A New Beginning by Danny Steinman. Is between the made-for-TV movie Bill and It's Alive 3, Island of the Alive.
That feels appropriate.
Yeah. And this also shares a ranking with Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. So there you go. And now we go into our final Friday the 13th film.
Excuse me.
Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives from 1986, directed by Tom McLaughlin, written by Tom McLaughlin, starring Tom Matthews, Jennifer Cook, C.J. Graham, and Dan Bradley as Jason Voorhees. Now, this movie is probably the more realized, like, where Jason is today, how Jason is represented in Vision. This is the movie that seems to be, has refined it to the point that kind of how we think Jason is how he is in this movie.
Totally.
And this is probably the movie that I saw the most as a child, and I was getting a little bit of memory flashbacks as I was sitting through it. And it's also the most cable-friendly, because this is the only Friday the 13th movie we've watched so far where there's no nudity or anything. There was no nudity.
There's fucking, but yeah, they're not nude.
Yeah, which is bullshit. You can, look, I might complain about some of these movies, but I'm not against certain traditions here, and they broke the titty tradition.
They sure did.
Yes, Jason comes back to life.
This is because Tommy and Horshack from Welcome Back Kotter.
If the institution ever found out about this, they would haul our butts back in and straitjacket them. Permanent.
You didn't have to come, Oz. This is between me and Jason.
I know. But I still don't get the therapy here. All you need to know is Jason's dead, right? Seeing his corpse ain't gonna stop your hallucinations.
Seeing it won't, but destroying it will.
Mr. Carter
decide to go dig up Jason's body because Tommy can't stop having visions of Jason.
Yes, Tommy did murder someone last movie, but that doesn't matter now.
Apparently it doesn't matter. He's a good guy in this one. And he can't get over thinking about Jason, so he needs to dig him up and kill him for good. But because he's a fucking asshole idiot.
Now, Jason's face should look like hamburger because when Tommy was a kid, he just chopped it. But
yeah, but it doesn't. There's just like some worms coming out.
It's nice that they buried him with his hockey mask. That's nice.
In a marked grave, nonetheless.
Yeah, they really
in
gave
the
him a
location and where he lived.
Yeah.
Really insane.
No one is studying this undead body for science at all. But lightning comes down. God comes and resurrects Jason Voorhees. It's God.
And he kills Horshack.
Yeah, Horshack is dead.
And Tommy goes to the police.
Yeah.
And they don't believe him because they think he's wacko and they know who he is.
But the sheriff's daughter, Megan, thinks Tommy's hot based on nothing.
Based on the fact that her father doesn't like him.
Right.
That is what that is. He's only hot because her daddy doesn't want her to talk to him.
Is this another... Aren't they trying to set up a camp here? Aren't they trying to... They
have kids coming. There are kids in this one.
Yes, we do. We do have kids in this one. And it is Crystal Lake, but they've renamed it.
It's
Pine Forest.
Forest Green. Forest Green. So it's Forest Green Camp. You do get a really great image at one point of an old Camp Crystal Lake sign where someone's scratched out Crystal Lake and it says blood. And it's just, I don't know, that's a really cool image to me. But they have arrived. There's all your kind of classic characters. You've got your boy who's sex crazy. You've got a couple, like a goody girl, another girl, and they're all kind of setting up. Well,
are there some screwy people? The characters become more screwball in this one, I feel like.
There's an old drunk man who runs the graveyard. He gets killed at one point by Jason. At some point, there's a couple in the woods who've just gotten engaged and they're about to fuck, and Jason kills them.
And the graveyard man, he finds the empty grave and is like, "Oh no!" And he just covers it back up. So Tommy's trying to get the police to come look at the grave, but you look at the grave, like it should still show that it was dug up, but it doesn't. Like,
yeah,
you don't just because you filled it up doesn't mean it's invisible to how that it would have been dug up.
Exactly. And this night, they're there. The kids have arrived. A bunch of fucking children are actually at this camp. The leaders of the camp, who happens to be the bad guy from Ghost and some girl, they get killed by Jason on their way there. And so they know something's wrong because not other people have arrived, but they're not really sure. And then once Jason comes in and starts killing these counselors, he just kills them real fast, but he doesn't hurt the kids.
The sixth one backs up my God's vengeance angel. Jason is an angel one.
Yeah, he has no desire to hurt these children. He just wants to get rid of these counselors because they're the bad ones.
And they were the ones that fucked while he drowned.
There's an insane scene where this kid, Court, who's like the sex-crazed boy, he calls a girl and she meets him in her dad's RV and he goes out to fuck her. And they're the ones that have sex in the movie that we actually see. But again, no boobs. And Jason cuts their power and they get out to check and somehow he gets in the RV and they have to go into the backup. But here's the thing. He didn't drain the gas out of the RV.
No.
It's
not a house. You
doesn't
can turn it on.
Make any sense. Like, yeah, you unplug it so you might not have all your lights or something, but your car still works. So stupid. But they get killed and they actually get killed on the road and the RV flips multiple times. The second it stops, Jason pops that door open and he comes out. He is indestructible now.
Yes.
You literally...
This is the Jason we all know.
You cannot kill him. And so at the same time, Megan, who they call Maggie, Daddy has told her she cannot leave. They trick the other police guy into getting Tommy out of prison or jail. And so they start driving around to gather all these supplies because he has this plan to forever bury Jason back in the lake.
Yeah, that's where he was made. That's where we got to put him again. And this is this whole rigmarole where they do taunt Jason out, but they've got chains. Like they're trying to like weigh him down and keep him in the water. But it's set up the way they take Jason out. It's totally set up to where it's like, obviously he's just going to be right back. Right.
Well,
because they run like this thing they light the water on fire because gas does separate with water. So it will burn on the top like that.
To try to keep him from getting away.
But in the struggle where Jason's under the water and they have the motor of the boat like grind into his head. But, and it seems to be enough for Jarvis to get away. I can't remember if Jarvis died. He doesn't die.
Megan at that point is the one in the boat because she then like gets Jarvis who's like floating. Tommy's just like floating and she saves his life. She brings him up onto shore. All the kids come out and they look and they say the line, "It's over, Jason's home."
Yeah.
Cut to next morning. We see the lake. It's so serene. And we go under the water and we see Jason. This lake is not that deep.
No.
We go under the lake and we see Jason. And what does he do? Opens his motherfucking
of course.
eyes.
That's not enough. This guy was rotting in a grave.
I know. They tried to make his brain into ground beef, but it didn't work.
You think this guy resurrected by our Lord is going to go out like that? No. But we will be getting into the rest of the Friday the 13th movies by the end of the year.
If only Tommy had died.
I just wish, Tommy Jarvis sucks, right?
I didn't want Tommy to come back in this one. It's really dumb.
He really brings it down. Especially when it doesn't follow the trajectory they keep giving him over and over. One movie he's like, oh, he's mad. Then the next one he's a hero. Oh, but then he's mad. And then it's just, you keep having this same idea and then you keep backpedaling over and over. And no one gives a fuck about Tommy Jarvis.
They could have just done some kind of, I mean, it was the 80s. They could have done some kind of, we're going to do a satanic ritual and raise this guy from the,
Yeah. Of course, we know Satan isn't responsible for Jason.
It didn't have anything to do. Well, that's why that's why God rises him up to kill them because they're wrong.
Yeah. Tommy's the problem. He's the Antichrist and Jason's just trying to save us all. Right?
What do you give this one?
I'm going to go with 2. I can't go higher than a 2.
I'll give it a 2 also.
Folks, it would appear based upon our ratings that the Friday the 13th series kind of averages down to around a C. And actually this one's D tier. So I guess if you did average up the two B's, 1 C, 2 D's, I kind of would, it would fall around to a C. So Friday the 13th part 6, Jason Lives. I forgot to put in the director there. Tom McLaughlin is a 4 between the movie Bit and The Delicate Delinquent. And that does it for this Friday the 13th. The next Friday the 13th will be in December. That falls on the 13th. It's on a Friday. And but this one, I can't say I'm blown away, but I think there's some fun things about the series. We seem to like the first 2 the most.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine it's going to get better than that, even as we go on to the next ones for the end of the year. A very mid series overall, but it's not that we didn't have fun watching this. We still had fun, but if we're really going to analyze and call it like it is, it's just the reality is that most of these are bad.
Yeah.
They're just bad. I mean, they didn't hit F, though. They just went down to D's. They came pretty close.
They weren't.
But not drizzling monster shit, because there is at least enough entertainment there.
Exactly. It wasn't as though we regretted having watched it.
Yeah, it's not like it's not Master of Disguise levels here.
What is?
That's true. That's definitely the worst one. But there you go, Friday the 13th. Yeah. Let's get back to our European selections this month, all right? So see you next week. Hope you have a good Friday the 13th, all right? And how are you going to sign off on these ones?
Death to all counselors.
Messenger of God, you're doomed if you stay here. This place is cursed. Cursed.